of the podcast that I do every week. And maybe some of you here on YouTube were unaware that I had a podcast, but I've been doing that since 2005. So way before I was a YouTuber, I was a podcaster. And my shows are usually a mix of anything from the world in which I live. And that is a combination of, well, obviously I'm a priest, faith, but also Star Wars, Star Trek, science fiction, technology, VR, books that I read. There's basically a whole slew of different... It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. The show is just called Father Roderick, in case you're interested. Feel free to join me in the chat and say hi if you want. I'm also going to post this real quick on Facebook, because that's normally where I stream these shows. But I've noticed lately, again, that the algorithm of Facebook is not helping me to reach the people that normally would like to follow me. So I'm just going to take a look and see what's happening here. Hey, Pythor Gamer, welcome. So let me see where I have actually where the live stream is, because I think I'm streaming to, yes, I am streaming to YouTube. I'm starting it's so quiet right now, but of course it's a Saturday on which I'm streaming. So maybe a lot of people are just outside or gaming or just, I don't know, just enjoying life in general. Let's see, I'm just going to post this here on my Facebook business page. Hi, join me on YouTube for my live podcast. Now, just the fact that I'm mentioning YouTube on Facebook is probably also already going to prevent this post from showing up in people's timeline. Oh, well, what are you going to do? The joys of social media. I hope everyone is doing fine despite the corona crisis. Here, things are slowly getting better, fortunately. So they're loosening the regulations. And we have a real downward trend for the hospitalizations and the people that die from COVID-19. So that is very encouraging. Of course, we're not there yet. We have to stay really careful, keep social distancing. So it's still impacting our life on a daily basis, but it is already so much better than it used to be. I hope the same trends are also visible in your country. And I hope that we're all going to be safe in the weeks to come. Pythor finally finished the first set series of Lego Hidden Side. Oh, cool. I love that particular series. It's really cool. Tarnlich, welcome. And TCS and Lawrence and Germo and Alice. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I'm just going to record my show right now, and then we have a transmission of Marian Vespers in the church, and I'm the cameraman, so I got to do that. And tomorrow I'll have my geek mass again, and this time I'm going to use, this is dangerous, I'm going to get some flack for that, but I'm going to use Harry Potter in my homily because, well, the gospel just made me think of Harry Potter. Anywho, let me get ready. So what you're going to hear are jingles, and I'll be talking. There's not much going to be. This is not as fun as watching me play video games, which, by the way, if you like that, then, of course, by all means, subscribe to the channel and follow the Let's Play videos that I post from time to time. It's just me talking about geeky stuff, and this is for an audio podcast. But I like the interaction. I just like to hang out with you guys and chat. So, thanks for being there. Alrighty, let me get my show notes, and wait a minute, I did not prepare my show as well as I thought I had. I thought I had everything in place, but I haven't. Well, you know what? I'm just going to wing it because I'm running out of time. I need to get this show out before the end of the evening. We'll see. There's always something to talk about, right? Here we go. Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, and I'm recording this on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Outside, temperatures are rising steadily, and also society is slowly but steadily loosening up a little bit after all the corona worries. So here's hoping that this will be an ongoing trend. This episode is brought to you thanks to my patrons, those of you that follow me and support me on a monthly basis with a small donation. If you want to join them, you get access to another podcast that I record. It's called Father Roderick to the Max, and it's like this show. So if you like this, it is like that, but it has totally different topics. And at the end of this show, I will briefly mention the topics for this week's episode of Father Roderick to the Max. And so it is available for all my patrons. It's a way for me to say thank you to all those of you that support me. And just take a look at patreon.com/Father Roderick.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Oh, it was another busy week, but there was one thing that really saved me and gave me some very, very necessary relaxation, and that is the wonderful game Animal Crossing New Horizons. Yes, I caved in, finally got a Switch, a Nintendo Switch. They are pretty hard to get because everybody during this corona crisis wants to have a Nintendo Switch. I've been holding out for 2 years now. Is it 2 years that this thing has been out? And I was like, well, I've had so many different gaming consoles, and I end up only gaming on my PC. However, I made an exception for the Nintendo Switch because of the game Animal Crossing New Horizons. I saw Gary Whitta. I follow him on Twitter. He actually, I think he follows me back. At least he's seen my Star Wars reactions. And Gary Whitta is the scenario writer for Rogue One, one of the most awesome Star Wars movies, apart from the 9 canon movies. I'm a huge fan of his writing, and he's also a very, very entertaining person to follow on social media. And he just came up with this wonderful idea of creating a talk show inside the world of Animal Crossing. And it is absolutely marvelous. I would definitely encourage you to check it out. And that made me think, oh, that is the coolest. First of all, it's the coolest game, but this is also something that I would like to experiment with. Of course, I'm not going to copy that idea, but to have a show inside Animal Crossing and then using the social aspect of people being able to visit your island, it's a ton of fun. So that's the reason that I caved and got myself a Nintendo Switch, and I have to say that it really helped me pass the time. And just when I'm completely fed up with all the work and I'm tired, just having the opportunity to sit back, relax, and play a little bit with, building my garden, planting some flowers, cutting some trees, saving some money. There is just so much stuff that you can do. And it is completely inconsequential. Many people would say it is a total waste of time. But you know what? I don't care because it is just, oops, I just disappeared from my green screen. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm streaming this live on YouTube, and while I was talking, I was playing a little bit with the settings because I've made the mistake of using my green screen in the evening, and so I gotta get up and open the curtains because it's getting dark. The sun is setting all of a sudden, and immediately I could tell that the light was caving in. Oh, and it's also overcast. That is why the whole green screen thing fell apart. So I still don't have the lamps, the studio lights that would be necessary to make a real good green screen set. Because they are still in church. Next week, I'm going to buy a new camera system for the parish, and then I can finally get my equipment back. And it is about time because I've been using it for church business for 10 weeks now. And so I'm just using daylight to light my green screen. And well, apparently when you're streaming at 5 o'clock in the evening, and all of a sudden there is a bit of a rain clouds are appearing in the skies. It was a sunny day today. Then the entire green screen setup goes haywire. Oh well, the joys of low budget streaming. All right, so basically my week has been work, a little bit of sleep, work, and Animal Crossing. That's my news update of today. And, I did watch a little bit of TV, and I finally did something that most of you here on YouTube have been bugging me about for weeks now. When do you finish watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars? The last season. Well, I finally did it. I watched it, and I have an opinion. Well, actually, more than one opinion about that finale. So that's what you're going to hear in this segment of my show.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
Now, I'm pretty sure that I have some Star Wars fans in my audience, and I'm reading through some of the comments in the chat room while I'm streaming this live, and Michael is in the chat and says, I was a massive fan of your Lord of the Rings online podcast all those years ago. Yeah, that was, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 years ago that I did the last episode of that. It was a lot of fun. We were just walking around this online game in the world of Tolkien, and we would visit places, and I'd have some people very knowledgeable about Tolkien. They would explain the history of those locations. It was a massive amount of work to prepare, because most of the early areas in the game were familiar to me because they are all in the movies, but then you would go to more remote places and I just didn't know enough about it. So it became a lot of homework to prepare those episodes, but it was fun to make. And Michael also wants to know if my Force Awakens trailer reaction got taken down. Well, actually, yeah, that was a bit of a disaster. I used to have another YouTube channel, and it had, not as many subscribers as this one now, but it was pretty sizable, and that's where I had my first breakthrough with those reaction videos. And the thing is, I got a copyright strike from a TV show. You're not going to believe this. They showed my reaction to the Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer on their TV show. And then they registered their TV show with the YouTube algorithm because they didn't want people to repost it on YouTube. And so I got a copyright strike. And of course I appealed, but then YouTube is this impenetrable fortress. It's like the Death Star without an exhaust port. And so basically they disabled my channel for monetization and a lot of other functions because of those copyright strikes. And I was not to blame. It was totally that TV company that did that to me. So I decided to, instead of continuing with a crippled channel, I decided to take everything offline and start this new channel that I'm currently using. And in a way, I'm actually glad I did that, because it helped me to focus much more on what I wanted to do on YouTube. And frankly, there were a lot of Terra Atomic gives me this sound effect. In case you hear this, this is when people give me a super chat. This is something that is linked to YouTube. And that is, people can give like an online donation in the form of a super chat, and then basically what they post gets this little sound effect, and I get a nice colored frame of that particular post. So Tara says, "Greetings from North Carolina, from the U.S." Well, greetings back, and thank you so much for your support. So anyway, let's talk Star Wars, The Clone Wars. I finally saw the last 4 episodes that together form the finale to this Clone Wars animated series that I have been very late to the game with. I've been, many people grew up with the Clone Wars, not I. I was like a hardcore movie Star Wars fan, and I did read the books, of course, and I played the video games, but the animated series never really got the opportunity to watch them. The main reason being that they were unavailable. They were not on TV. I think at one point we got Disney XD, which was a channel that was available for some cable subscribers, but I don't have cable. I don't have even regular television. I watch everything on demand. So for me, the only way to watch the Clone Wars was by buying the Blu-rays. Now I did buy the Blu-ray of the first movie, the Clone Wars movie, and then the first season. I think I picked it up on Amazon during a sale. Still paid like $25 or euros for it. It was pretty expensive for one season, and then I didn't want to continue. That first season didn't work for me that well, and it's only now that Disney has posted everything they have in terms of animation on Disney Plus that I was able to go back and finally discover why this is such a well-loved series. I've been going through the series over the past few months, and then I started to watch the 7th season, which is kind of the like a bonus season, because Disney at first didn't want to, when they bought Lucasfilm, they didn't want to continue it, so they stopped actually Clone Wars. But a number of storylines were already in development. Some of the pre-production stuff was already done, and so it's only after they launched Disney Plus that they announced that they would finally conclude the story of Ahsoka, which is Anakin's apprentice, and then of course Anakin and all the others. They would give us a final season, and the season 7, is what I've been watching for the past few weeks. The first few episodes were still based on stuff that was in pre-production already when Disney bought Lucasfilm. And so in terms of tonality, they are very much like the rest of the series. The animation has improved quite a bit. You can tell that it's very polished. And then at one point, the series gets closer to the events in the actual prequel movies, and the last few episodes are happening in the same time frame as the prequels, the Clone Wars in the prequels, which of course very dramatic moments, very dramatic events. The most important one and the most destructive one, of course, being Order 66. That happens also within the story time frame of this last season of Clone Wars. So everybody was eager to find out what would happen. And in the meantime, there was also a bit of a drama going on with Ahsoka, this Jedi apprentice, because she was also disappointed by some of the actions by the Jedi Council, very similar to Anakin's disappointment. She was set up, and then, well, anyway, there's a breakup. I won't go into details because of spoilers. And when they finished these first few episodes that they still had lying around, they continued her story at first. So what is happening when she walks away from Anakin and all the other Jedi? And I have to say that I was disappointed by those episodes. Disappointed is a big word. I mean, I watched them. They were entertaining, but I didn't like the storyline. I didn't like the character. She meets two sisters and goes with them on an adventure. There's a little bit of a moral lesson to that whole thing. You'll have to watch it for yourself to find out what. But I felt that the story was a bit contrived. The two characters, the two sisters, were kind of weird, and I just didn't feel that they were Star Wars characters. It was, it just felt out of place, out of just not something that, and I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on it, but there was something about those characters that felt off, and not Star Warsy enough. Also, the story itself was very inconsequential. There's the only thing that happens at one point, and that's where I kind of sit straight and it's like, okay, we're back, is when Darth Maul appears. And of course, that is still part of the time frame that was established by the Solo movie. So I'm not saying anything new that when I say that Maul is alive. But when Maul is back, then all of a sudden they drop all the other inconsequential timelines, and then they gear up for the finale. And this season feels to me like a bit of like a 50-50 deal. Like 50% is kind of, yeah, not bad. And then 50% is, oh, wow, this is Star Wars. This is what I hoped it would be. And they totally deliver. So they tie into everything that happens in the prequels. That is very cool. We see more of the Siege of Mandalore. We see more of Darth Maul. And then, of course, there is this final confrontation, which, of course, is totally Star Wars. You need to have this big lightsaber fight and then all very dramatic, action-packed, and it was amazing. Animation was fantastic. Choreography of the fights. I've never seen this in the Clone Wars. One of my criticisms of the earlier seasons was that a lot of the battle was generic. It's just battle droids shooting at Jedi and Jedi deflecting their lasers. And it would always be the same setting and just not very interesting to look at. And I have to say that I skipped through a number of those episodes with these fights. It just went on and on. The worst for me was when they went to the planet of Mon Calamari. So that's where Admiral Akbar comes from. So it's a water planet because he's a bit fishy, of course. It's a trap. So there's this, like, I think 3 episodes with underwater battles. And it looks like a cheap knockoff of Aquaman. But so annoying. And so it just went on and on and on. And it's like, oh, yeah. What a filler episodes. Really not my thing. Also, that was really childish. The story was geared towards very young children. And I've seen the Clone Wars grow up. And one of the major reasons that I never pursued the Clone Wars after seeing the first season on Blu-ray was that I felt that the story was a bit too much geared towards children. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But for, let's say, more hardcore Star Wars fans, it is a bit much to ask of us the patience of working our way through a story with a baby Jabba the Hutt, or like a baby slug and that sort of stuff. It's like, and then the episodes with Jar Jar Binks were pretty cringy as well. However, this last season shows what the potential is for animated storytelling, and I think sets the scene for even cooler stuff in the near future. These 4 last episodes felt like they were, I think, in terms of storytelling, sometimes even beyond what Lucas did in the prequels. It feels much more balanced than Revenge of the Sith. Everything, the animation is extremely subtle. So the character animation, you look at the eyes, even the pupils dilate and shrink in certain scenes just to enhance the emotion of the characters. And we know these characters and we love them so much that we're super involved in what happens to them in these final 4 episodes. And also, the tonality is completely different from most of the rest of the Clone Wars. It feels like even the opening is different. The music is very, very different. So they really pushed boundaries, and they used kind of at times the music made me think of Blade Runner, and that's a compliment. It's very moody, very slow. And some of the scenes are also really taking some time to set the scene and set the mood, to process what's really going on, because of course what's happening to the galaxy at that time is horrible. It's just Emperor Palpatine taking control of everything and everyone. Turns out he's been manipulating everyone, and his ultimate goal is the total destruction of the Jedi. And so everybody you love will die. All the Jedi will die. And by the hand of the stormtroopers, of the clone troopers, I should say. The clone troopers, that is, I think, one of the biggest merits of the Clone Wars series. They were humanized. All of a sudden, they're not just these, CGI soldiers, not too different from stormtroopers. And yes, you know that they are clones on the inside, but you hardly ever got to connect, in the movies that is, with the clone troopers themselves. And that's what Clone Wars does really well. So they all have their own distinct personality, even though they are clones, and you care for them. And then to see how much that chip inside their brain is impacting everything that they stood for and turns them against the Jedi, and then ultimately, of course, leads to their demise. It's heartbreaking. And these 4 final episodes really take the time to bring that across. And it's masterful. It's absolutely masterful. There is this final scene on a ship with Ahsoka, and the action is out of this world good. It is like, oh, I want to see this in real life. This should be in a real life action Star Wars movie. It was that good. It was fantastic. And I was like, oh, I can't believe this is animated. It's absolutely the best that they've done so far when it comes to animated series. And then there is this epilogue, which is very surprising. So they fast forward in time, and all of a sudden you're in the timeline of the original trilogy. So A New Hope, etc. And that one also gets very moody, it's very dark, very sad. And kudos to Filoni and all the others that have been giving all their energy and talent to wrapping this story up in the way they did it, because this is what I think the series and also the fans deserved, and they did not disappoint. So awesome work. And with that, it is time for a short visit to the Peculiar Bunch.
Catholics rock!
Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're always happy to tell you everything you always wanted to know about those very strange aliens called Catholics, but you're afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
No, we don't eat light bulbs. Thankfully not. But we do have a lot of quirks and strange traditions that sometimes require a little bit of explanation. And that's what I do here in this segment of the show.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
All right. And today I want to talk a little bit more about celebrating Mass in Corona times. And this is a question that is occupying a lot of my fellow Catholics right now, is once these rules, these very strict rules of keeping your distance, working from home, not being able to go to church because of the risks of infection, because it looks as if in parts of the world those rules are loosened a little bit, will this mean that we can go back to church? And I think for quite a few Catholics, this time of not being able to go to church has been a moment of realization how much they actually enjoy going to church and how much they miss that. And I've seen people watching the live streams, and I do like this Geek Mass or Mass for Geeks on Sunday evening, where I usually stuff my homilies with geeky references. This week I'm going to do a homily about Harry Potter, because I was reading the Gospels like, oh, I know what I'm going to talk about. This is the story of Harry Potter. And I see a lot of, connections between those franchises. I did, like, my first homily was about Baby Yoda. And I what I read in the comments is, and it's heartwarming, is a lot of people say, whoa, this touched me so much, and I've not been in church for a long time, but this is really a discovery, and I love this, and it helps me, and it inspires me. And I was like, wow, it took Corona for some people to rediscover how much value they get from online liturgy. And what is going to happen to all that when we go back to our churches? For some, this is not going to be an improvement. And I had someone write me saying, well, we're kind of stuck. She lived in Belgium, I think. And she said, in our churches, it is so boring. And we have like these old priests, and they don't really care. They literally say Mass at high speed. They want to get it over with. There is nothing in their homily that is inspiring, because they themselves are not inspired. So how can they inspire us? We're in this church, and there's this old decrepit choir of old ladies, and no one can sing, but they're just there because that's just what the parish is like. And she said, I'm so enjoying these online liturgies, and we have like great homilies, and it's fun, and there are geeky references, and the songs are great. And I don't know if I want to go back to I don't know if I can go back to my old parish. And that is, I think, that is a problem for some. I would say, well, hey, I'm usually streaming at a time that I'm not in competition with other churches. So I hope that people will continue to watch my geek mass, or at least look at or watch the homily, and get something out of that. Maybe that will help compensate. But on the other hand, I also really want people to go back to their churches and be in a real community instead of just an online community. I mean, I value what we do online. I love my YouTube community. I've gotten to know so many friends over the past few months just by streaming, by playing video games online, by chatting afterwards, or by reading the comments. Like right now, there's so many people joining me from Los Angeles, and other ones from New Hampshire. Someone's watching from California. So I would have never met all of you if I wouldn't be able to if I didn't do the streaming. And the same is true for Mass. There's so many people that I get to know because they watch the Mass for Geeks. I never did anything religious on YouTube. This was my channel just for Star Wars, and I didn't want to go and do preaching here on YouTube because I wouldn't watch it myself. I don't like preachy stuff. I don't like it when it becomes too churchy. And so and I know that when I'm just saying Mass in my own parish, I need to keep in mind that I have mostly older people in church, and so I can't talk about Star Wars, or I can't show them Baby Yoda. They'd freak out. But now with this Corona Mass, I can. And all of a sudden, I see that for some people, this is exactly what the doctor ordered. And so, well, I hope to be able to continue this. But at the same time, I'm also wondering, if things go back to the way it was, do I still want to go back to that old situation? I've learned so much how this new way of celebrating and communicating mostly can be, and what the advantages are. I don't think I can get used to the old way of doing it because it was broken. Most young people would never set a step into the church anymore because it's just the music, the way of talking, the boring homilies. It's just they consider that to be a waste of time. And it's only the hardcore Catholics that really value receiving the sacraments that would still, endure all that. Because they know that the real value is not in a charism of the preacher, but it is in the presence of Jesus. But for many people, that is a bridge too far. They are still growing into this. So I feel that if we're starting society back up, if we're starting church back up, then I think we should learn from what we've experienced in these past few weeks. And a number of lessons learned. For me, what I've discovered is that liturgy is super visual. We were used to very simple, sober liturgies. And I've noticed if you're streaming, just do everything, make sure that constantly things are moving, that we use frankincense, that we do all the gestures. I've completely rebuilt the entire choir of the church so that we get the maximum amount of action. And it's not action in the sense that you have to entertain, but liturgy is a visual spectacle. And so I've rediscovered the value of not that I disregarded that in the past, but I've stuck even more to the rules of the liturgy because it works so well. It's so visual, and there's always something happening that keeps you interested and that helps you to engage in the liturgy. The second thing that I've learned is the value of Latin and Gregorian chant. And if you watch my Mass for Geeks, there's actually quite a bit of Latin in there. And for me, it's the new Klingon, It is such a cool language, but it was always regarded as, especially by the older people in churches, that's from our past. That's not. Young people don't like Latin. They don't like Gregorian chant. And the feedback that I get is, "Oh, please, sir, can I have some more? Because this is awesome. It's kind of it connects you with that music to centuries of wisdom and beauty. And I think young people are very sensitive to that. And it's a different world from the kind of liturgy that is very common in Catholic churches in the western part of the world, where we have all these statement songs, I call them. So it's like, oh God, I would like to let you know that we are doing fine here, thanks to you. Give us strength and hope. And it's this declamation of things that, like, dude, God knows. And why are you singing this? You know, music is supposed to help you pray. It's not an intellectual exercise. And so I've really I've never liked this you know, these newer songs, especially the English ones are terrible. I mean, in the United States, how can you guys endure that in mass? I've visited the US many times in the past. And so on Sunday, we'd attend mass, and then they have these bundles with songs, and then there's usually a piano and a cantor, and it's a lot of those songs are so obnoxious, especially if you have this slightly older man or woman who is like singing them with a lot of vibrato in her voice or his voice, and it's like, God, you are, and I was like, oh, get me out of here. Chewy, punch it, fly casual, whatever you do, let's get out of here. So anyway, so for me, this time, being able to just handpick my singers. So for Mass for Geeks, I have 4 singers, and they have fantastic voices. And I've got one of my directors who has such a great taste for music. And it's so beautiful. And I am inspired when I listen to those songs. And that is not usually the case when I go celebrate Mass in one of the parish churches. And I was like, oh, it's like, it's old. It doesn't work anymore. Most people that are members of choirs are just doing that just to pass time because they like singing, but the quality is not there. And what we forgot was that if church music doesn't help you pray, doesn't inspire you, but on the contrary, prevents you from enjoying the liturgy, then maybe you should do something else. Maybe that choir continue singing, but do it elsewhere. You know, refocusing on quality in the liturgy, and reconnecting with the beauty of our tradition. And there's beautiful church music also in our modern church. Look at the stuff that was composed for World Youth Day. There are some masses there. What they sing in Lourdes and other places of pilgrimage. There is a lot of great content out there. But let's get rid of all the stuff that was, you know, popular in the 70s and in the 80s. That is no longer working. And the thing is, on the internet, when you're streaming live, you can tell. You can literally measure when people will zap away. And so that gives you so much valuable feedback. And the whole fact that you get feedback on liturgy is something that I hope we can continue to have in the future, because otherwise you may think that what you're doing is fine. And then one day you wake up and there's no one left in church. I think that's already actually reality. And for years, we've been misdiagnosing, I think, what was going on. And that is that what we offer, the form, not the content. I'm not talking about the contents of faith or the dogmas or what we believe in. That is our strength. That's the treasure. But it was wrapped in you know, old paper towels or something like that. And it is just, the form does not, the quality of the form does not correspond to the value of what you try to transmit. And these two have to be in line. That's why we have beautiful churches. It is because the beauty of the churches, the beauty of the Vatican, you know, it is to point towards the true beauty that is on the inside. But if everything is meh, in terms of the music, the words, if there is no inspiration, if you have someone who's like, well, today I'm just reading a homily that I copied online from some homily website because I don't care and I don't want to be here. That, even if people try to hide that comes across. If there's no enthusiasm, if there's no real passion, then nothing will happen. Yes, there is, of course, the objective reality of what you're celebrating. And again, Mass, that's what I love about Catholicism. Mass does not depend on just the charism of the preacher. It's in certain Protestant churches, that is, the focus is very much on the quality of the pastor. And if that pastor goes away, the entire thing crumbles. Thankfully, that is not the case in the Catholic Church. But the form, I've always said this, the form is conducive to that richness. But if our the way we celebrate Mass, or the way we used to do that, if that hampers people to understand what's going on, if it blocks them, then they will never discover the true value of the Eucharist and of the sacraments. So it starts with taking. It's like when I'm making a video, I take time to set things up, to have a nice backdrop. I get irritated when the green screen goes awry, because I know that the quality of the image is important, especially for people that are only watching a few minutes. If it doesn't look like anything, they're going to go and move on to the next show. So those are some thoughts about the future. Let me know what you think should happen after the corona crisis with your local church. I'm open for suggestions. I think we all have a lot to learn.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
I'm still doing a lot of reading. Well, actually, no, that's not true. The opposite. I still wish I would do a lot of reading. That is the truth. I wanted to take advantage of these corona times to do more regular reading, and I still want to absolutely to meet my own the challenge that I set myself to read one book per week, but I'm falling behind. I think I need to catch up with like 2 or 3 books now because I can't keep it up. So I was reading this book, Children of Blood and Bones, and really enjoy it, but I'm stuck. I can't find, in order to get going with a book, this is like 600 pages or something. So you need to make some progress to stay in the story. Otherwise you forget about what happened before. It's like when you interrupt watching a movie and then a week later you go back to that movie and it's like, oh, wait a minute. How did they get on this airplane? You have to go back like 15 minutes before you get to, now I remember that's what happened. And then that dude did that, and that's how they ended up on that plane. For me, books is the same. It's even worse because it doesn't have this visual component. So I know that I need to program in longer stretches of reading, but I just can't find the time. So I'm struggling with that. How can I get a more, let's say, balanced life? I've been I've just recorded an entire episode of another podcast that I record on a weekly basis called The Walk. If you go to Trideo.com/The Walk, Trideo, TRIDEO.com/The Walk. That is a show that I record while walking, and I shared some of my thoughts on what I try to do to get back to that balance of the force, because right now there's a great disturbance in my daily routines. However, on my reading list, I can still talk about books that I want to read. Well, one of the top 5 books that is now on my list, finally, is the book about Ahsoka. I bought that during a sale a while ago. It is written by E.K. Johnston, and it talks about Ahsoka, the character of Ahsoka. It is canon. And it also points a little bit towards the future of Ahsoka because, well, little spoiler, Ahsoka lives. But what happens next? That is part of this novel. And I didn't dare to start reading it because I hadn't finished reading or watching the Clone Wars. So I was afraid that I would get spoiled. now that I have seen the final episode of Clone Wars, I can finally start reading that. So that's next on my list. And I've stopped reading some of the fantasy novels, again, because I first want to finish Children of Blood and Bone. There's a lot of magic in there, and I'm afraid that I get my magical systems mixed up. So I'll let you know what my next book is going to be. And now it is time for me to close the curtains again, because the sun starts to shine. The rain clouds are moving away, and now all of a sudden I got too much light on my face. All right, that's better. Oh boy, oh boy. Anywho, yeah, it's kind of still a little bit dark. I'll fix it as soon as I get my lights back next week.
I see aliens. Little aliens from outer space.
And how are things in outer Plutonia?
How many times have I told you not to wear your space boots in the house?
Go the shape I'm in, you can donate my body to science fiction.
Get your suit on! We need ya!
All right, science fiction. Another pretext for me to talk Star Wars, because you thought that I was done talking Star Wars, but no, because there was... in this segment, for those of you that are listening to this or watching this for the first time, I do talk about other Star Wars franchises or other, slip of the tongue, of other science fiction franchises as well. But yeah, there is just too much cool Star Wars news lately that I need to discuss. So here is what I heard last week, and I couldn't be more excited. Actually, I predicted that this would happen, or at least I think I put it on my wish list publicly, so maybe they've been listening. Taika Waititi, the outstanding writer and director of Thor Ragnarok, which is my favorite Marvel movie. I have never laughed out loud so much while watching a movie than while watching Thor Ragnarok. But also, of course, the voice of what's his name, the killer droid in the Mandalorian, T-I, I don't know, some computer name, and also I think the director of the final episode of the Mandalorian. But anyway, he is asked by Disney to co-write and direct a theatrical Star Wars movie. And I was like, yes, the best choice ever. This is someone who really understands Star Wars. And he's a lifelong Star Wars fan, very much like Jon Favreau. There's currently on Disney Plus, very interesting, albeit a little bit hardcore, there's this documentary series about The Mandalorian. And it's basically a table discussion with a number of people that were involved. So the first one episode is about all the directors. And it's fun because you know the episodes, and then all of a sudden you realize, well, whoa, so that one's directed by her, and then by him. It gives you some insight in what happened behind the scenes. The second episode that is now available is about special effects, I think. Anyway, but Taika Waititi is also there participating in the discussions, and you see how much The Mandalorian is not just groundbreaking when it comes to the storytelling, but also in terms of recruiting new talent for the Star Wars universe. That's maybe one of the biggest flaws of the whole Disney merger with Lucasfilm, is that they made some faux pas when it comes to getting the right writers to be involved. And so there have been some pretty radical changes behind the scenes, removing writers, removing directors. And Solo was a big disaster at one point, and it needed a lot of extra work to make it into the movie that it is right now. Rogue One, even though I'm a huge fan of Gary Whitta, but there were some issues with the script and with the directing, and so they had to make some pretty radical changes to that movie as well. So they've not been very lucky. Even Colin Trevorrow, who would direct Star Wars, the third sequel, now known as The Rise of Skywalker, was replaced by J.J. Abrams, and J.J. had to basically tie it all up and bring the story together, because well, you may have seen the story that Colin Trevorrow of Jurassic World wanted to make, and although it was cool, but it was not the kind of conclusion that you wanted to this epic saga. I think that J.J. Abrams did a much better job. I know that some of you don't agree, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. I think that now The Mandalorian has proven to be maybe you could say the baby room for new talent. But they can try their luck at directing or writing one of those episodes. And then Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy can have some time, some working time, some quality time together with these writers and directors, and she can, together with, of course, the rest of Disney, they can get a feel for who would work and who can do more than just TV shows. And, maybe there are also some directors that they invited and then, well, thank you, and don't call us, we'll call you. but Taika Waititi absolutely nailed it, I think, in The Mandalorian. And so to give him the free, I'm not sure if he gets free reign because he's listed as a co-writer. The second writer that they've asked to pen the script for this Star Wars movie is Leslie Headland. She is also pretty well known recently for her role as a co-creator and showrunner for a Netflix series, which is definitely for a different target audience than Star Wars, Russian Doll. It is time traveling, or kind of, it's a bit Groundhog Day, but then in a very mature version. I watched a few episodes. It was not for me. Maybe I should watch the entire season before giving a final verdict, but I couldn't get into it. I was like, no, it's too dark, too rough, too vulgar sometimes. Not my thing. But anyway, it's going to be interesting. The fact that they have a co-writer, I think, indicates that they do know what they're going to make, what kind of story this is going to be. What is interesting is that this Christy Wilson, did I say Lee Brackett? No. Christy Wilson Cairns, wait a minute. No. This is wrong. I'm mixing things up. Sorry about that. The Leslie Headland that I was mentioning of Russian Doll, she is actually heading a new Star Wars series for Disney Plus. Okay. Reset. I was wrong. So we don't know what kind of series this is going to be. It's rumored to be female-centric. Nowadays with Disney, that's almost a given. If they would say it's male-centric, then everybody would say, what? What? Do we get a male hero? No. Well, of course, The Mandalorian is male, but Disney seems to really want to compensate for all male movies of the past decades, and so they're giving us a lot of female heroes. I have nothing against that. On the contrary, many of my favorite Disney movies have female heroes, so that's great. And in Star Wars, sure, go for it, I would say. As long as it doesn't become too politically correct. The downside, and that's why some people criticize Disney for this trend of having all these female characters being in the lead, is that then as a result, all the male characters become these bumbling idiots. And that, of course, is not good for the balance of the Force. That's not how the Force works. That's not what you should do. But it's just, I think, kind of course correction often comes with overcompensating. So she'll be heading a female-centric show, rumored, on Disney Plus that takes place in a different part of the Star Wars timeline than other projects. That is interesting. That makes me curious. It's probably going to be the past. I don't think it can be the future. They want to reserve that for future projects. They don't. So maybe Old Republic, maybe that new time period that they announced for this new whole slew of books that's coming out. I don't know. We'll probably get some more details further down the road. No, the female writer who will co-write the screenplay for... Oh, thank you, Samuel, for the Super Chat. Samuel is in the chat room, our magic edutainer from Sweden, and very strict moderator during Geek Mass. Anyway, so the female co-writer for the screenplay of this Taika Waititi movie is Christy Wilson Cairns. She co-wrote the screenplay for 1917, which I still haven't seen, but it is a fantastic movie from what I've heard. And she will be the second woman to co-write a Star Wars movie. The first one was actually for Empire Strikes Back. I did not know that, but that was mentioned in the article, and it was Lee Brackett. She co-wrote The Empire Strikes Back together with Lawrence Kasdan. So, good things are coming. I couldn't be more excited. So we have the announcement of a new Star Wars movie in preparation, and there are a few more that we heard about. So no timeline, no announcements about that, nothing about Rian Johnson's trilogy, but at least there is another dot on the horizon so that we can go back to theaters. Because frankly, I love what they do on Disney Plus, but Star Wars without movie theater experiences is no longer Star Wars, and that's what I think. And I'm sticking to it.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Just plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
There is one more thing, and that is I need to talk about the Nintendo Switch a little bit more. In my introduction, I told you that I finally switched to the Nintendo Switch, but what a great device is that! I never saw it in real life. When I saw the concept of it, I was like, that's not for me. You know, I've had my share of Nintendo experiences. I love some of the games. I had the Nintendo Wii. I did have the Nintendo 3DS. I sold them all because a lot of times Nintendo was like I play it a little bit and then there's just nothing to hold my interest. But this Nintendo Switch, the concept of having like this mobile device that you're able to connect to your TV and play it on the big screen, to me that sounded weird, and I didn't like those detachable joysticks and everything. I was like, that is so for children. That is not for me. That's not going to work. I'm not going to like that. Whoa, was I wrong? I got to open the curtain again in case you're wondering why the sound is so bad. But now all of a sudden clouds are back, so my green screen again goes haywire. I shouldn't bore the audio listeners with that kind of stuff, but I just wanted to give you some context as to why sometimes I'm a little bit distracted. But what I like about the Nintendo Switch is exactly that. It is the ease of use and how quickly you can just take this out of its holder and you can just play it. It's much bigger than I thought it would be. On the pictures, it looked tiny. I thought this would be the size of the Nintendo 3DS, which it absolutely isn't. This is much bigger. And this is actually exactly the size that fits my hands. I don't have very big hands, but I love this. I can hold this in my hands for multiple hours. I'm secretly telling you how much I've played Animal Crossing. And that is not the case, for instance, with the iPad. When I have an iPad Air, and when I play games or read or watch movies on the iPad, after about 15 minutes, it gets too heavy. My hands are cramped, and it feels very uncomfortable. But this Nintendo Switch thing, it's just the right size, the right weight. All the controls, the joysticks are in the right places, and it feels very surprisingly sturdy. I thought that this holder where you put it in if you want to play it on a TV, for instance, that looked very flimsy. Even when I unboxed it, it felt very plasticky. I was like, that's going to break very quickly. Well, it turns out, no, it's so easy. I thought that would be like a USB-C connector on the inside, but it's actually extremely lenient. You just drop it in. I'm going to do that right now. I'm not even paying attention as to where the connector is probably going to be, but it just slips into place. I don't know how they do it, but it just works. This is the kind of dock that I wish Apple devices would have, like an iPad. That would have a charging dock like this, and it would automatically project the screen to a TV. Wow, I think that would be fantastic. But no, with the connectors, even USB-C, you still have to really look at what you're doing. You can't just guess how to connect these things. You got to watch it. And oftentimes when I have to reconnect my phone or my tablet for charging overnight, it is in a darkened room. It's in my bedroom. So I constantly have to ask Siri to turn on the lights, or not Siri, I don't have Siri. Ask my Google Assistant to turn on the lights, because otherwise I can't find the connector. So I love what they did. Also, what is excellent is the user interface. So the whole, activating the screen, press the same button 3 times, and then the audio is not that good. It's a little bit on the low side. So that's the sound coming out of the speakers. The speakers are on the back. I thought it was on top, but that turns out to be, I think it's a cooling grill or something. It lets in. It's probably to cool the processor. So the sound is coming out of the back, which is kind of weird because it's not pointed towards you. There are 2. Actually, now that I think of it, I see 2 little holes in the screen. Oh, they are speakers. So there are speakers on the back. I wonder if those are speakers. Maybe I was mistaken. But anyway, sound is a little bit thin. I expected, with this size and the weight of this device, I expected the sound to be much louder, but it's not. But on the other hand, it's not that important for this type of game. Animal Crossing is a very relaxed, spare time game. So it doesn't really require massive sound. But if there was one thing that I think they could improve, it's exactly that. So I've been able to figure out a way to stream from the Nintendo Switch. And if you've watched my YouTube channel this past week, I've been doing, I think, 3 episodes from within the world of Animal Crossing. I was trying to, set things up so that maybe in the future I could do a show inside the world of Animal Crossing, following the example of the great Gary Whitta. But it was much more difficult than I thought it would be. I've used the Elgato Stream Deck. No, it's not the Stream Deck, sorry. The Elgato Game Capture HD, which I bought 2 years ago. I wanted to stream my PlayStation 4 at the time, and I never set it up. I was like, ugh, it's too much of a hassle. And so I thought, well, maybe it has an HDMI in, so I'm going to set this up and I'm just going to stream the Nintendo. What I did not realize was that when you stream through the Elgato, it introduces a delay of about 2 seconds. And so everything that you see on your computer monitor, which is when I'm playing Battlefront 2 online on YouTube, I play, actually, in the window that I'm playing in is exactly synchronized with the window that I'm streaming. So I can just play the game on my monitor, and on the right side, I've got my Streamlabs OBS app and the chat room, and it's all real time. But with this, the only signal that I get in the computer is a delayed signal. So you're constantly like, oh, I got to go to the right. I'm bumping in that tree again. Why? Because what I'm seeing happened 2 seconds ago. It's really, really annoying and frustrating. So I had to come up with another solution to basically ignore the sync. What I'm doing now is I have a big widescreen monitor, like super widescreen, 21 by 10, I think is the kind of the dimensions. You can attach 2 separate HDMI sources to that monitor, and then you get 2 square screens. It's very funny. It looks very skewed. So on the one side, I have the computer, so I can read the chat room, for instance, while I'm gaming, because the interaction is, of course, why this would work in the future. You need to have that social interaction, and you can interact in the game by typing on a screen. It's like 10% of what you can type in Twitter. It's like literally 4 words. It's really stupid. So I can't really communicate in the game. So I keep the computer on the one side, and on the other side I see the screen of the Switch. But what I see there on my monitor is the real image coming straight from the console. And then the computer takes that image and transmits it 2 seconds later. That is one of the reasons that I don't use a webcam. If I would add a webcam image to the game that I'm streaming, the webcam would be constantly 2 seconds out of sync. So you'd see my mouth move, and then you would hear my voice, or vice versa. So I'm not going to do that. And it doesn't really need it. The game is fun. It's good. It doesn't need my face to enhance it. Let's put it that way. It looks, the characters in the game are a lot nicer looking than I am. But it is fun. Another thing that I wanted to briefly mention is how much I like the community of that game. So you can open your island for visitors, and I can visit other people's islands, and the generosity and the kindness and the help that you get from other players is unlike any other online game that I've seen. If I play Battlefront 2, I'm always a bit afraid to go online and play with other players because I'm so bad at it that they may get angry with me. And because I'm a noob, I'm an old man who plays video games. I shouldn't even be there. But with Animal Crossing, I feel like, it's so relaxed. And this game makes you relaxed. The music is calm. And so everybody's in a good mood when they're playing Animal Crossing. And that definitely comes across in the interactions that you have with online players. So that is, I think, one of the unexpected boons of playing Animal Crossing. It is relaxing and, it makes me, again, experience the inherent goodness of a lot of people. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're connected with me through YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to listen to the audio version, check out Trideo.com/Father Roderick. I'll see you next week. Take care, and God bless. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. You have been witnessing me recording an episode of my podcast with a cool Star Wars background. And, I don't think I can do another show because it's really getting dark outside. So sorry for all the green screen trouble. Thanks for the super chats of those of you that donated something. Appreciate it. Let me go through your questions here real quick now that we're here. The Switch is pretty awesome, says Furiosis, but it's an old Game Boy juiced up. Yeah, it kind of is. Usually the hardware is very limited, nothing to write home about, but the games are so well optimized that you don't realize it. Samuel is watching me from the treadmill. Oh boy, you're more courageous than I am. Nate Dogg says, Father is technology literate. Kinda. It didn't prevent me from completely ruining my PC the other day. Emiliano wants to know, do you think Poe Dameron could have been a better protagonist for the new trilogy of Star Wars than Rey? Oh, no. Poe Dameron is this Han Solo character. Definitely good secondary character, but no, Rey is what Star Wars is all about. Let's see. Maybe Finn. I'd like to see more Finn. That would be fun. He is funny, and the actor who plays Finn is great. I've just bought the Blu-ray of the movie that he filmed right before he started to do Star Wars, and it's called Invasion on the Block or something like that. I should do a review. It's fantastic. And you see the potential. He's the lead in that movie. He is fantastic, brilliant, very difficult to understand because he speaks this British slang. But man, it's funny, and that guy should have his own trilogy, I think. But of course he has to share the screen with so many other cool characters. The main storyline of episodes 7 to 9 was a big mess. Well, Not everything was as strong as I hoped it would be, but I wouldn't call it a mess. That's pretty good. Boba Fett's going to be in The Mandalorian, probably, according to the rumors. I knew it. Late Night Break says, I've been inspired by your liturgy and your Math for Geeks recently as a younger guy. I hope you will continue to enjoy it. And if there's anything I can do to improve, let me know. I'm open for suggestions. Margot Johnson says, yeah, some of the songs in church are decent and others are not. And any song sung badly is, well, bad. That's true. That's a fact. Greetings from Minnesota. Greetings back, Lita. Good to hear from you. Nate Dogs watching from San Diego. That's one of the towns that I still want to go to. It's on my bucket list, but temporarily delayed because of viruses. Arki is there from France. Bonsoir et bienvenue. Tommy wants to know, what is my favorite Harry Potter film? The first one is great, and I love the one with the challenges, the fourth one. But I like most of them. They're all very different. I liked what they did in the final few episodes as well. The Mon Calamari episodes of Clone Wars were boring. Someone agrees with me. Thank you. All right, well, that's about it. Yeah, I need to go get something to eat. The sun is starting to shine, so my green screen is going down the drain again. Anyway, just pretend that I'm inside this rebel base, and this is just light streaming through the open doors, and my X-Wing fighter is parked outside, and I'm going to fly in it back to Hoogelander Veen here in the Netherlands, where I have to be the cameraman for our Vespers tonight. Again, thanks for stopping by, and give this video a like if you can. Leave a comment. It all helps to promote the channel.